guys, so today we are going to be talking about processed foods, why you crave them during different phases of your cycle, and how to combat that with good, real whole foods, how these processed foods can actually negatively impact or worsen your symptoms, and why having that choice of those real whole foods is so important. So let's start with a brief overview of the different phases of your cycle. So you go through your cycle starting with your menstrual phase. This is the first phase of your cycle when you're bleeding. That's 3 to 5 days. Then from there you enter into your follicular phase, which is about another 7 to 10 days. This is the phase where you have a little more energy, you're starting to pick up with your mood, and then you enter into your ovulatory phase, which is 2 to 4 days, just depending on getting the tracking right. Now, when you are in your ovulatory phase, you have the most energy, you feel the best, you feel the most social, and you feel really bright and happy. And then you enter into your luteal phase, which is the next 10 to 14 days, where you start to feel a little bit more low energy, the cravings maybe intensify a little bit, and then you enter back into that menstrual phase again. Now, your hormones that fluctuate throughout each phase of your cycle have a direct impact on your energy, your mood, and of course, your cravings. Now, these cravings may be surface level and appear one way, but the reality is that there's typically a deeper meaning to these cravings, and having the first thing that comes to mind actually might not be what's best for your body. Let me explain what I mean a little bit. So when you think about your menstrual phase, for example, when you get into that menstrual phase, your estrogen and your progesterone are at the all-time low of what they will be throughout your entire cycle. A lot of women tend to crave sweet and salty foods, and maybe we'll typically go for something like a donut or some chocolate or some French fries. Now, the reality is that these cravings for processed foods happen because of the decline of those hormones. We're starting to feel a little bit more sad, we want a quick dopamine hit, and so our brain is triggered to think, oh, go for those quick sugar, high salt foods that are going to give you that quick hit of that happy hormone. But the reality is that if you indulge in those things, especially too often during that menstrual phase, it's actually gonna make your bloating, your fatigue, and your recovery during your menstrual cycle worse and harder, versus if you were to have the real whole foods that would be nourishing during this time, which we'll get into the next part of this video. In your follicular and ovulatory phase, energy starts to rise and then spike, and oftentimes for women who are having adrenal issues or even thyroid issues, we can be in need of a quicker hit of energy, and that's when the body is still craving those processed foods past the point of your menstrual cycle. But the reality is that eating those things, those processed foods, the things that come in a bag or a box during this time, a lot of times women will crave carbs. As their energy starts to increase, they'll want that, even more of that hit of increased energy. What will happen is you will also start to increase inflammation, which can lead to mid-cycle pain. It can lead to crashes in energy, and you want to avoid that. And so we'll talk about the foods that are right for those specific parts of your cycle as well. And then you enter into your luteal phase, where progesterone starts to rise, and then at the end will fall, and estrogen starts to decline as well. During this phase is when your cravings for comfort foods will absolutely peak, meaning you're gonna crave more carbohydrates and more starchy type foods during this phase because of the shift in your hormones. But that doesn't mean, again, go for bread, pasta, and cakes. It means let's look for alternatives in complex carbohydrates that are rich in fiber, so that you can actually support that luteal phase when those intense PMS type cravings start to come in. So what are the healthy alternatives that you can indulge in that will be both supportive of your cycle and will make you feel good and satisfied when it comes to what you're eating on your plate? So in your menstrual phase, when you are craving that salty French fries, those types of foods that are going to fulfill you and satisfy that salt craving, instead try doing some air popped popcorn. Maybe you do some grass-fed butter melted on top with mixed in with some nuts as a healthy fat to help stabilize your blood sugar and to tap into that salt craving. Then during your follicular phase, rather than having these sweet snacks, sugary processed candy, things that people tend to crave, because this is an energetic part of our cycle, we typically crave lighter foods. And so you could really do yourself some good by having some fresh sliced fruit with some non-dairy Greek yogurt, again, to help stabilize your blood sugar, elongate that blood sugar curve, while also eating that light, fresh food that is meant for our follicular phase. Then we get into our ovulatory phase, where we're going to start to produce progesterone, and we want to start to balance out those hormones. And we can really, rather than having like an energy bite or like a granola bar or something like that to continue to promote energy during this phase, we could have some sort of a homemade energy ball, where maybe we're using things like sunflower seeds, which are great for the second half of your cycle and helping to really promote that good, healthy progesterone production, with some dates and some almond butter and putting a little bit of protein powder in there, mixing that up and making it into a homemade energy ball. We have some really great recipes. Specifically, we have a seed cycling energy bite on our app that you could go to and make during this phase of your cycle. And then you get into your luteal phase, and rather than having all the chocolate and candy bars in the world, maybe you do a really nice piece of 70% cacao that is like a Lily's bar or a monk fruit sweetened bar. That way it's made with stevia or monk fruit, and it doesn't have that glycemic impact on your blood sugar. So you're getting that craving met, but you're also, again, doing what's better for your blood sugar, and you're making a swap that both feels good for your mind and for your body. Or you do some sort of like really nourishing, nutrient dense fruit smoothie that has things like banana, and again, maybe some sunflower seeds, some chia seeds, things that are going to be supportive in that luteal phase, that are, again, very nutrient dense, thick, heavy, comforting, but also still going to support your energy levels, help you to reduce bloat rather than promote bloat, and help you to feel less irritable and happier throughout the day. So I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that you got some knowledge about your cycle and what your cravings are trying to tell you surface level versus what your body actually needs. And when we can indulge in a craving, we can satisfy a salty craving or a sweet tooth and also meet our body's needs, we're gonna be so much better off in terms of how we feel physically, mentally, and emotionally throughout each phase of our cycle. If you enjoyed this, please let us know what you liked about this video, what you want to hear about next. Rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week.